Good morning. I am Scott Kopishke, a member of your Board of Trustees. The pronouns I use are he and him. I'm also a member of the Rock 19 team, and I am happy to tell you that new relaxed COVID restrictions will be coming in your e-news this week. Yes. If you are involved in the service, you no longer need to be masked if you are singing or reading. We ask you to please remain masked in the sanctuary, but once you leave the sanctuary, masks are not required. We can all sing in the sanctuary while we're masked. And just like Shamrock Shakes, hugs and handshakes are back on the menu. Before we can restart coffee hour, we need to rebuild our team. So if you are interested in being a coffee captain or a coffee commodore or however you want to call it, please contact Vicki. It is good to be with you in person again. And hello to everybody online. Thanks for joining us. I'd like to draw your attention to a few things that were announced in the latest e-news that was sent out this week. This year's annual pledge drive, Together for Joy, is offering intimate small group cottage meetings held in members' homes, the church, or on Zoom. You'll learn more about our church history with money and what resources are needed to achieve our community's fullest potential now. It's a great opportunity to meet new people, reconnect, and deepen current relationships while making your pledge. You can sign up online or after service at the stewardship table. It's time to nominate members for this year's annual Trustee Awards. Who would you like to honor for taking action, exhibiting excellence, initiative, and commitment, enhancing the life of the congregation, or representing our congregation with definable results or outcomes? One long-term service award will also go to an individual who has exhibited commitment over time to a service or project. Please submit your nominations by April 10th to board@uucw.org or contact Pam Beatty with questions. I'd also like to thank all of the ushers and greeters who volunteered for today. With services back in full swing, we need more help offering hospitality to members, friends, and visitors going forward. Go to the links provided in Thursday's e-news or in the printed announcements for more details about signing up. We gather to strengthen one another and hold each other in beloved community here at UUCW. One way we do that is through connecting and sharing our joys and sorrows. Everyone received a yellow joys and sorrows form today. If you have something you wish to share, please fill out what is in your heart and soul. It will be picked up with the offering later in the service to be shared with Reverend Denise and the pastoral care team. If you are a visitor here and want more information about UU Church West or have questions, please fill out the card in your order of service or send us an email. We welcome your inquiries and learning more about what folks are seeking from a spiritual community. Please email us at visitor@uucw.org. We would love to connect with you.
Oh yeah, I get to take this off. Ooh, okay. Before I go into this, I saw Vicki looking around. Did I fail to tell you we were going to include joys and concern cards with the orders of worship, or do people have those? See, okay, that's on me, just letting you know. But are they available? And where would that be? Over here? Okay, so if you have a joy or concern, we do care and want to hear about it. It was my faux pas not getting that information out to the office to let them know to include them this week. So, welcome to this liberal religious congregation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ruesch, and my pronouns are she and hers. I am a member of the worship ministry team and your worship associate today. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the staff, volunteers, and guests who have contributed to this service. It takes many hands and hearts to create meaningful worship, and we are deeply grateful to all who have helped. Special thanks goes to our esteemed pulpit guest, Joanne Williams, who I am sure you recognize from her many years in Milwaukee media and beyond. Her career began in high school when she hosted the teen talk show on Milwaukee's Wah Radio. How many of you remember Wah? Oh, yeah. 2 weeks after graduating with honors in film from Northwestern, she started working for WTMJ-TV. In 1973, Joanne and Pete Wilson started The Morning Scene, the first 30-minute early morning TV newscast here in Milwaukee. That was followed by several years at WGN in Chicago as a reporter, writer, and part-time weathercaster. I did not know that about you. She returned as WITI's Community Relations Director in 1978, producing many projects, including The Disabled Are Able, which was nominated for a Daytime Emmy. In 1982, Joanne returned to the WITI newsroom and wore many hats as reporter, anchor, and producer during her tenure. Over the years, she hosted live call-in programs, town hall meetings, and participated in thousands of community events on behalf of Fox 6. I know when I first talked to her on a Zoom call, I'm like, I feel like I know you. She said, yes, I'm still in this little box here. For 8 years, she was the host and segment producer for Milwaukee Public Television's Black Nouveau, which won a regional Emmy in 2018. She has won awards from the National Association of Black Journalists in 2012 and won the Bronze Award from the Milwaukee Press Club for Best Documentary or New Special for the program Harry Kemp, the Photography Man. Joanne was a regional director on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists, a founding member of the Wisconsin Black Media Association, president of the Milwaukee Press Club, and has served on many boards and committees and agencies in Milwaukee. She's a member of the Milwaukee Press Club Hall of Fame and a National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Silver Circle honoree in 2009. In 2014, the Milwaukee Business Journal honored her as a woman of influence for her inspiration to others. I know she's an inspiration to me. In her retirement, Joanne has worked with United Way of Greater Milwaukee and Waukesha County and has become associated with Milwaukee Film as an independent documentary filmmaker with her film, which she will be talking about today, The Exchange in White America, Kaukauna and King 50 years later. We are so grateful and fortunate to have Joanne Williams as our pulpit guest and presenter of the program that follows this service. Thank you for being here with us. Finally, we want to welcome and thank everyone who has taken the time to be with us here or remotely, and we invite you now into a time of centering. Some of us are bringing our best selves to this place, and some of us are bringing our struggling selves, including pieces we might be ashamed of. All of us are welcomed here, and all of us are loved.
Some of us already have open hearts, and some of us aren't quite there yet. Perhaps our hearts have gotten a little beat up, and we might have forgotten how to trust and open. Your heart is welcome here, no matter how bruised. We welcome you among us.
And all of us are imperfect, but we're here to drop our defenses and trust that what happens in worship is powerful and life-giving. Together we affirm this day and our being together, we can make Each of us can be braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning.
We welcome you here.
And we didn't know we could, everyone could sing behind the masks. But we are singing hymn number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. And you're welcome to sing behind your mask with us or hum along. And I'm very happy to have my fellow divas from Kaleidoscope with me today, Linda and Natalie.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Justice seeking.
We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Young and old together.
We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Land of many colors.
We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Gay and straight together.
We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Gentle, loving.
We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. And we are singing, singing for our lives.
Please read along, and if you're joining us at home, feel free to kindle your own chalice or candle. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold white supremacy in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
Buongiorno, mi chiamo Dave Cicero, il direttore di educazione religiosa per la durata della vita. I miei pronomi sono lui e suo. Yeah, that was kind of like my reaction the first day of Italian 101 in college when the professor entered the room and just started speaking in Italian. The interesting thing was, we all pretty much knew what he was saying, even though he had never spoken the language before. And that's my point here this morning, that we can understand others who are different from us when the context makes sense. By that, I mean that situations and experiences have many more clues besides just the verbal ones to help us understand what others are talking about. That's how each of us learned our own native language, just by picking it up little by little as we lived our lives. No vocabulary quizzes, no grammar lessons, no tests. This is known as immersion. Being surrounded by something like a language so completely that it takes over anything you thought you did or did not understand and forces you to just kind of go with it. I'm thinking, too, a little bit about Reverend Denise, whose sermons the last few weeks have spoken about these emergent strategies and murmurations, how instead of waiting to become expert at something before going out and doing it, you just kind of start small, little fits and starts, and those things eventually kind of coalesce into something grander. They organically combine and create something bigger than what was there originally. So the effectiveness of this immersion process, especially for long-term retention, is why so many foreign exchange programs include a homestay. Instead of setting up a student to live in another country while they're studying another language or another culture, instead of setting them up in a room, a hotel room or a dorm, many programs arrange for students to live with a host family. That way, there's little opportunity to revert back to one's native language, like English, which many hotel and travel workers are happy to practice using. Now, this could be difficult for the traveler, to be sure. But if the student is living as part of a family, like a sibling, instead of as a guest or customer, there's likely to be much more support, love, for them to use to navigate those daily issues that can certainly be hard, especially in another country. Some members of this congregation have had a taste of what this is like, personally, or with one of the groups organized to go to Nicaragua, or I think one year, was it Honduras? Where did we go? I'm sorry? Dominican Republic, thank you, when things in Nicaragua weren't all that safe that year. To help build schools or housing. And so these brigadistas, as we refer to them, right, offered their time and energy to families living in the villages. And I don't believe it was a one-way transmission of assistance or help. It was an exchange. just like there is for students in a homestay. There was this exchange taking place, a giving and receiving of gifts, of knowledge, of learning, of love. Just talk with Eileen or Jim or Eddie or Lynn or anybody who's been on these trips. The Fries, I think, if you guys been, yes. Just talk with them for a minute, and I think you'll just sense immediately the vitality that was part of that experience. The connectedness that's experienced among all people, surrounding, experienced by all these participants is undeniable. Now, as you might have guessed, I don't have a storybook that I'm reading today, but the religious ed classes today are hearing a story about the need to always work with and be connected with others because we are stronger together than we are alone. Now, my first experience of this immersion, cultural immersion type of thing, came thanks to a really great friend of mine. His name is Chris Fontana. He was a college roommate. I think we actually met as seniors in high school, ended up going to the same college, and eventually became roommates and really good friends. He studied abroad one year while we were in school and really clued me into this whole idea of exchange programs, studying abroad, and immersing yourself in another culture. He had great stories about the house he lived in and the croquettes, which the senora was making. You know, he and another friend of ours were just raved about the food, and just the experience they had was complete and transformational. Now, after we graduated, after Chris was teaching for a few years, who was actually my inspiration to go into education, he actually formed with his brother and some students, an organization called Global Visionaries. Their mission is to empower young people to be socially and environmentally conscious, empower young people to be socially and environmentally conscious global leaders. So now, this is based in Seattle now, but their central activity was always to run, they had a few per year actually, of a cultural immersion program. I think it was 2.5 weeks in Guatemala. Participants spent a half day helping build schools or in the mountain villages, or helping out in the hospital for disabled adults, or on an organic farm. They spent the other half of the day learning Spanish with a private tutor. And they spent the other half of the day living with a family. These homestay families, they cook, they provide traditional meals, traditional food for the students, and bring the participants closer to the Guatemalan culture. This is often one of the most powerful immersion experiences we can have. Again, many of you have had that, so we can share those stories. I chaperoned a trip, this was probably, it's almost 20 years ago now, but some of the lessons that I really learned was just experiencing the generosity of people who, from the first look at things, are living pretty in what we consider poverty conditions. However, the generosity they have for others that they're with was just immeasurable. But it also helped me understand that the challenges faced by people in other countries and other cultures, making a living, supporting a family, are basically not much different than our own. So I gave my time in this program. I also received a whole lot. There's an exchange there. Chris has moved on to another venture, which is currently his current nonprofit called Full Circle Leadership. He provides opportunities for people to exchange gifts of leadership. So instead of working primarily with youth, he's working with teachers and administrators, trying to implement more democratic classroom experiences in the schools. He also facilitates diversity and allyship training for youth participants. But he's focusing a little more these days on local opportunities rather than international travel. And he cites a letter that I actually, that we received together on another project we were working on even before Global Visionaries, from the author Wendell Berry, who we invited to come to a student-led environmental workshop. And his response was, "Thank you for the invitation, but I don't travel anymore for the impact on the environment reasons, but good luck," kind of thing. So Chris has really still 30 years after that, or 25 years after that, still internalizing this. That exchange of ideas is still living on. So I'm sharing this all today because we are going to hear about another exchange, a local exchange that happened a couple times. Joanne is going to be sharing that with us today, and it's providing some context, another way to look at it, another perspective to use in hearing about it and learning about it. Which brings us to the point where those children who are here today at church will be going to their religious education classes, and we will sing them down with our traditional recessional. As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go.
Yes, I have a face. I know, right? Hi, my name is Kathy Bradshaw, and the pronouns I use today are she and they. It was somewhere around 16 years ago, 2006 for those who are slightly math challenged this early in the morning, that I called UUCW and happened to speak to Reverend Suzelle. It was a very unusual conversation. I was feeling all this internal angst and grief and wanting a spiritual community for my family, which consisted of 2 queer women and 2 beautiful Black children, Tori and Alec. But I wanted this assurance from her that nothing remotely Christian was pushed on us because of the hatred spewed at me and my family of choice by the Catholic Church and other so-called Christian religions. My mother was slipping away from this life with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I was searching for answers. Instead, Suzelle said, "Come try us out." That's all she said. So, after a couple of weeks of indecision, my family of 4 arrived at UUCW. And I have to tell you, it was one of the oddest first services to ever attend. Yeah, you guys took the cake on this one. The service was nothing but singing. Now, I love to sing, especially in the car really loudly or whenever the mood strikes me off key. The songs we sang spoke about a reverence for life and our interdependence. Something in those words rang true for me. So we returned each week thereafter to see what was in store that week. It was my sincere wish that my 2 kids learn all about the interesting religions out there so that they might fit in when those God conversations occurred. And more importantly, they find a community here Unfortunately, Alec recently told me that he felt he was here for show only, to make the whites feel good, and he felt he stuck out. Please understand that I pour my heart and soul into service here at UUCW to ensure a welcoming community for all, including Alec. I have taught RE classes, served on the Board of Trustees, helped lead Earth Spirit Services, served on the RE Council, the RE Transition Team, Build 2020, Worship Ministry, and most recently, the Ministerial Interim Search Committee, and a whole bunch of classes, including Wellspring. Recently, as most of you know, I had heart surgery, open heart surgery. I felt so held by this community. I learned a whole new spiritual practice, accepting help. I could not cook for myself, let alone clean for myself or anything. I just was totally incapacitated. Friends, without your pledge and commitment to UUCW, this is but another building with people, not a community of love and healing. And it is what I have needed all these years. I ask those of you who have yet to pledge your financial support to do so today. And thank you.
Good morning. You know, you're never supposed to follow really good speakers or really good music, because then that makes you look bad. But Dave gave a very nice speech, which I was inspired by, and the music is very nice. I enjoyed that too. I'm used to hearing that song played at a little different tempo, but I like that way too. And it also reminded me that I wish I knew how to play the piano. Who else here knows how to play the piano? Can you teach me? Because I wish I could play. My name is Joanne Williams, and first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you to UUC West for the support you've given us to get this film made. In talking about today's program, I saw it says sermon/reflection. And I warned Dave and Deb that my grandfather was a Baptist minister. So if I fall into preaching mode, you tell me to back off, okay? But the reflection part is what I thought I would talk to you about this morning. You know, when you look in the mirror, you don't see your whole face at once. You really don't. You look around and you see your hair and you see your nose and you see your ears and you see your chin and you see the many facets of your face. That's the reflection that you see. So that's my reflection this morning, and so please indulge me. I'm going to look at a lot of parts of my face. I've always looked at the big picture through a small lens. What do I mean by that? Well, first, I want to define the big picture. When I was covering day-to-day news, I often had to see very disturbing things. I had to see bodies on the pavement, demonstrations of dozens of people in the streets, unpleasant court cases. I had to focus on the situation before me, get a quick understanding of what was happening, and then repeat it to you. But I always learned to look one block away. I always looked around the corner from the crowds. There were people going on with their daily lives untouched by that event. So what's happening right in front of you is the small picture, but the bigger picture is what's happening around it. It shouldn't be overblown or presented as the only thing that happened that day, this small event, because there's a lot going on around it. And you have to look at that too and hopefully learn something from all of those events and all those people too. Yes, for the people involved in that particular situation, it was everything. It was what happened to them that day. It sometimes made a shock in their life, and they were seeing things through the small lens, where I had to look at the big picture. In the TV news business, you have to gather the facts of the situation, you have to write them down, and you have to read them back to the audience. And then you go home. You cannot let the story get too close to you, because if you do, you can't see the big picture. We had a very talented reporter at Fox 6 many years ago named Boyd Huppert. He is the best storyteller in television news in the country. And I say that because that's substantiated by many people, not only the people at KARE in Minneapolis where he works now, but he's been on NBC, and he is the best person to tell a story for television in the country. One of his principles in covering the news matches the first principle of your church, which is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. He once covered a very simple story about a ceremony at a fire station house for a fallen firefighter. He watched the event, he looked at the videotape, he wrote the story. His desk was just behind mine in the newsroom. So when he finished writing, he and I started to talk about this story. Other reporters and a couple of photographers drifted into our conversation, and we started talking about how hard it is to tell people's stories. And surprisingly, we all started to cry. Now, other people in the newsroom saw this and this little circle and wondered what the heck was going on with those people. But when one of our managers heard that we had all gotten emotional, they said, "Leave them alone, they need this." In the day-to-day news business, you have to stand back. You have to separate yourself from the story and the people in it. When you make a documentary film, you have to go all in. You see the bigger picture of the story through a small personal lens. In the 6 years that I have worked on this film, I've met hundreds, 6 years. I've met hundreds of people from all over the world. I joined a group called the D Word that meets by Zoom every Friday. I have another group that meets on Tuesday. I get them confused. I Zoom a lot. This past Friday, there were people on the line from New York, California, Wisconsin, Arizona, Paris, London, Kenya, and one from St. Petersburg, Russia. We were all talking about our documentary films and what we are having to do to get them produced, written, shot, the whole process that it takes. We talk about the progress or lack thereof, and we also talk about the feelings we have in making these projects and this journey. Being an independent filmmaker is incredibly lonely. It takes a toll on your heart and on your mind. There are so many details to handle and so many obstacles to overcome. One of the women on the call had been working on her film off and on for 20 years. The subjects of your film may pass away before the film is finished, which is the case in our film. Then it becomes the filmmaker's responsibility to finish that project to make sure that the person's story is not forgotten. When you fill out applications for grants to get the money needed to make the film, the hardest question I have to answer is, define success for this film. Number 1, get it finished. Number 2, illustrating a series of events that changed the lives of 13 teenagers. Number 3, allowing audiences a safe space to discuss their thoughts and feelings about what they have seen. A work of art can allow viewers to react and say things to other people that they might not feel comfortable saying anywhere else. I have the challenge to you to look at yourself in the mirror tonight, and what reflections do you see? Who here has ever gone out to dinner with a person of a different race? Who here has ever had a person of a different race visit their home? Who here has ever visited the home of a person of a different race? Who here would let their son or daughter go live in the home of a person of a different race for a month? Who here would let a teenage boy or girl of a different race from Milwaukee live in their home for a month? I see lots of hands. I'm impressed. But that's a story that I'm telling in my film, The Exchange, in White America, Kaukauna and King 50 years later. It's a long title, longer than most any documentary films you're going to see, and several people in this 6-year journey have suggested that I shorten the title. But each part of the title has a meaning, so I push back. The Exchange. It's the story of an exchange of high school students from the city of Milwaukee and the all-white town of Kaukauna, Wisconsin, in the Fox River Valley. Many of the people in Kaukauna had never seen a black person before, except on television. None of the black and white kids from Milwaukee had ever seen a little town in northeast Wisconsin before. In White America is the title of the play that brought the kids who would perform at both high schools together. It's the documented history of African Americans in our country from slavery to civil rights. Kaukauna and King 50 years later is what we wanted to discuss. What did those kids learn? What happened during the exchange, and who are they now? I did not participate in the exchange in 1966. But I was there at Rufus King High School when it happened. That lets you know my age. The journey I have taken to get this story to the screen has brought back memories that I didn't know I had. I learned things about my family that I didn't know. For instance, my father was always taking pictures with his Polaroid camera. Anybody remember a Polaroid camera? Oh, yeah. Okay. In doing research for the film, I looked at 3 black and white Polaroid pictures that were taken in my living room. They were in a box in my garage marked high school stuff. Anybody have a box like that at home? For 50 years, I only recognized 2 people in these pictures. I didn't know who the other kids were until now. They were the kids from Kaukauna who came to my house for a party that my parents gave. I didn't remember that until I saw the pictures, until I started meeting these other people. Here's a saying that I can't attribute to anyone, but it fits my feelings. We do not remember the days, we remember the moments. When I realized who these kids were, I remembered standing in my living room with them. Now, we have a full program this morning. You have lots of music and worship and sharing. When you're drifting off to sleep tonight, what will you remember from today? Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. When I write applications for grants for the money needed for research to produce and market this film, I sometimes tell funders that they often donate to groups and organizations that offer programs that will change people's lives. This film project will change people's minds. In her poem for Joe Biden's inauguration, Amanda Gorman said near the end, when the day comes we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid, the new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. So here's a sample of the exchange in white America, Kaukauna and King 50 years later.
I think in 1966, the black population of Kaukauna was 1.
It's really hard to know who's a good guy and who's a bad guy.
They were very brave to say, yes, we're going to do this.
Oh, no. Where is Kaukauna? And how far up north is Kaukauna?
They want to, go out and meet you, but they're sort of afraid.
The impact of the experience of the exchange on the people who were involved stayed with them their whole life. I believe it's something that happened in Wisconsin that nobody knows about unless they were involved in it, but everybody should know about, because it's a way for people to get to know each other and a way for people to learn to live with each other.
To talk about in white America as a work of literature that has an impact upon your life, that was important.
There is a lot more change need to come, should come. When they say joy comes in the morning, it need to come now.
Mask off. Joanne, first, I'd just like to say how proud our congregation is that we were able to support all of your loving efforts. And I think good morning. I'm Pat Ryerson, a member of your worship ministry team at UUCW. And this morning, I'm very happy to introduce to you again Alejandra. My high school Spanish is failing me right now. Alejandra Gonzalez, Development Director of Voces de Frontera. As a DACA recipient, Alejandra is someone who has experienced navigating the world undocumented. The work that Voces does is not just personal, but it is vital for her and others in her community. Alejandra, we welcome you again to UCW, and please tell us about your very important work.
Thank you so much. Take this off too. So, just personal testament. So coming out about my immigration status as a child was very dangerous. Right? It would put my family and myself in danger. So for the longest time, I kept all of that anger, all of those fears, all of that resentment inside and to myself. And of course, this led to like really self-destructive behavior. And it wasn't until I came to Voces de la Frontera in 2016 that I found power in my story, that I found strength in community and community organizing, and joy in mentoring other young people that have had similar experiences to myself. So this past month, I've met with other DACA recipients, other undocumented youth in Milwaukee, and found it very interesting how similar but different our stories and experiences are. Our fears and our anger still exist in us, but through Voces, we see a way to enable change for bigger things. So thank you for your support. Without donations like yours, we wouldn't have a home to go to and a space to feel empowered in. So thank you.
And as you've heard many times, there are many ways in our congregation to support Voces de Frontera. They're all on your screen here: texting, emailing, and just a regular check. Thank you for your support.
Coretta Scott King said, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate action of its members." We thank you for your generosity today and your compassionate actions every day. Our closing words were written by the Reverend Jim McGaw. It is called "Go in Peace, Seeking Justice." When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in mindless oblivion. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go without challenging yourself or others. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in utter ease and comfort. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace, seeking justice. I mean go in peace, committed to equal rights and opportunities for all. When I say go in peace, I mean go in the peace that is created when together we build communities of true solidarity, deep compassion, and fierce, unrelenting love. Go in peace. And just so you are aware, the three of us will proceed out to the hallway and the foyer if you wish to visit for a little bit before we resume back in here for those of you who are staying for Joanne's talk at 11:30.